Hi there! Today we're going to talk about finding and evaluating sources of information. Our standard for today is learners act on an information need by making critical choices about information sources to use. This standard is important because when you are researching a paper or you're trying to complete an assignment, you want to make sure that the information that you put into your research paper or your assignment is accurate. You don't want to get a bad grade because you put the wrong information, because you didn't properly evaluate your sources. There is a lot of information out there, and even though it's easy to Google, not everything out there is accurate. Our discussion question for today is, what are some strategies that you can use to determine if your source is reliable? So I have 10 different resources here for you that will help you choose reliable sources. These are resources you can use as you're researching, as well as some instruction on how to research overall. So right here, we're going to start here. This is a BrainPop video over research. It's a great starting point. It gives you some information about researching. It talks about how to find credible information, and it also explains primary and secondary sources, which will be helpful as you're researching. Our next video is also from BrainPop, but this one is a little bit more specifically geared towards online sources. It has to do with searching online. This will help you determine if a website that you found might be biased. They might be trying to get you to think or feel a certain way. And it helps you determine ways to find acceptable sources. I have 2 posters here for you. These are just quick overviews. They both have 5 steps. This one is 5 research tips for students. It talks about clarify, search, delve, evaluate, and cite. These give specific tips as an overview for research. And then when you're using Google, I have a basic guide for you to help you use Google properly. I have 2 resources that overview different sources that you might use. This video talks about databases, and as you'll see, we can't play it in here, but if you click this button, it will take you to the YouTube video. This talks about different databases that you might use, such as encyclopedias like Britannica or Infobits. Right here, we have this slideshow right here talks about reference sources. And reference sources are encyclopedias, but also dictionaries, atlases, almanacs. And if we go back right here, it talks about and explains what each of these sources are. And it doesn't just explain what they are. If you go to page 9, it talks about some ideas when you might use each source. So this might be helpful if you don't even know where to start with your research. You might not need to go online. You might just need to use a dictionary or encyclopedia. All right. If we go to this tutorial right here, this one is a fun interactive research tutorial from the Kentucky Virtual Library. And if you click right here, it takes you to an overview of research. Might take you a couple times. There we go. So it takes you through each step: plan, search for information, take notes, use the information, report, and evaluate. And this isn't evaluating information, it's actually just evaluating and revising your work. Now, you could go through each step if you want some help with planning, but since we're talking about information and evaluating information, we're going to start right here. This talks about some information sources that you might use. It takes you through using the library catalog. It takes you through some different encyclopedias and online databases you might use. It tells you how to use the encyclopedia, as well as using nonfiction and reference books, and how to use the dictionary as well. So, as well as magazine and newspaper articles. So this website has a lot of resources and a lot of information for you to use, and it's in a fun and engaging format. We also have, once you've found your resources, I have 2 resources for you. So once you've found your sources, this one right here talks about how to evaluate your sources. Once you find your source, you can click on one of these articles. It'll tell you how to identify bias. So are they trying to get you to feel or think a certain way? You can talk about, it talks about evaluating images and evaluating websites as well. Is it a reputable and reliable source? It also talks about primary and secondary sources, as well as understanding copyright. Another good resource for you, once you've found your sources of information, is this infographic right here. It talks about being a critical thinker. And once you've found your source, you're going to need to be a critical thinker. You need to ask questions to determine if it's a reliable source. So what's happening? Why is it important? What don't I see? How do I know? Who is saying it? This question is important for determining bias. And then what else? What if? What are some other ideas out there? And then finally, I have a search engine for you. This is Kidtopia. It's a custom safe search engine from Google. And it's divided into specific topics, but you can also just search right here through the search bar. And even though this is a safe search and it's filtered out most of the unreliable sources, I still expect you to use the strategies that you've learned to evaluate these sources. Find 2 or 3 sources. Don't just take the first source you find and use that information. You need to evaluate to make sure that it is correct, because there's always incorrect information out there. And that is it. Those are the sources that I have. These are going to help you be critical thinkers and evaluate this information. So it's important to make these critical choices to make sure that you have accurate information and that you're properly informed. And that is all.